Hello and welcome back to another episode, Chatting with Slava the Jordanian. I am your host, STJ, as a lot of you know me through Instagram, telling my stories. Today is a very special episode because I got my one and only, my co-host back, JD Yusef. He's back and he's local, so we're very, very excited to bring him on. And also a returning guest, Dr. Ihab Abdelrehim. Today's episode, we would like to share with you, since, again, the inspiration of this podcast is all about storytelling. We would like to share with you our own stories going through graduate school, professional school, whether it's law school, dental school, or as Ihab got his PhD from UC Davis, and shed some light on what helped us conquer our challenges, champion the stigmas as we went through that journey as an Arab American immigrant. Now, the beauty about this group is JD Yusef, the youngest. He was born in California, so he is a Palestinian American. I was born in Saudi Arabia. I am Jordanian, Palestinian American. Ihab, Dr. Ihab, came to the United States at age 2 with his parents in 1970. He was born in Shubra, Cairo, but he was raised in New Jersey. So we have a combination of different experiences, different upbringing, different states that we lived in. I don't have a home. I'm landless. I was born and raised in Saudi Arabia. My home is the United States for the past 36 years, but there is no origin of me, not like Yusuf, not like Ihab, as much as, you know, my parents left Jordan 1967 and went to Saudi Arabia to seek employment, basically. But again, this is all about storytelling, and I just want to remind everybody that these episodes are on podcast platform like Apple and Spotify, and they are also uploaded on the Greenwood Dental Partners YouTube channels. So please like, share, and subscribe. That way you won't miss an episode. Plus, it is available for you to listen to and to watch whenever you want, wherever you are. Let's start with JD Yusef, since JD Yusef has been going through the journey of relocation and rediscovering himself and his role. JD Yusef have joined the Greenwood Dental Partners team, and he is our logistic and strategic officer to our brand. And as you know, Dr. Ihab, he's our CEO and he's the founder of our franchise group, Greenwood Dental Franchise Group. And I am basically the owner of the 3 Greenwood Dental clinics or practices in the United States. So I guess the first question for JD would be, what was the story behind your passion for law?
Thank you, Dr. Slava. Thank you, Dr. Ihab, for having me again and for the question. So this question I've received countless times, but at its core, I wanted to help people, right? But okay, you can help people in different ways. Dr. Slava, you help people. You know, Dr. Ihab, you've helped people in your professional past. So I guess at the crux of it then is I like to help people, but with the caveat of, hey, I'm still a Palestinian, where I've heard and read stories about either a physical takeover of some sort of land or property, or uniquely a legal loophole, which was kind of implemented back home in Palestine, and also something that was used in this apartheid South Africa and the Jim Crow South. So this legal dynamic is very interesting, and that's one thing that I figured if I can learn a little bit, I can maybe give back and help out. So
your law degree, is it a specific law that you got your degree in?
No, it's general. And once you graduate law school, then you kind of specialize, right? So what I tried to specialize in was contract law and business law. I have experience in personal injury. Being in Alabama, capital murder defense, believe it or not, is a big business, unfortunately. So I got to see the people on death row walk through the prisons, and it's a big business down south, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I wanted to concentrate on negotiations, contracts, and business.
Wow, that's fascinating. And how about you, Dr. Ihab? What inspired you to get the PhD in chemistry?
So I'm going to go back in time. Let me take you on a journey. Since I was young, since we came to the United States, my dad's dream was for me to become a doctor, an MD. So all in my head, right? I'm thinking, because once your parents say it, they program your mind as you're growing, right? Everybody here understands what I'm saying. So they program my mind, and my first recollection as a child, my mom and my dad are like, "Oh yeah, you're going to be a doctor," because neither of my parents finished high school. So they want, we want you to be a doctor. I think you'd be great. So that was the whole kind of push behind me becoming a doctor. So when I was old enough to make decisions, in my mind, every time a family friend asked or a friend of mine asks, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to be an MD. That's all I want to do." Right. So fast forward now to high school. Okay. Now, a medical doctor is, obviously everyone understands what a medical doctor is, but you need to have certain, you can't have a major in college called MD. You cannot major in that. So in high school, I had to figure out what am I going to major in college? And my first chemistry class I had was with a teacher named Mr. Davis, and he is the one person that inspired me to become a chemist. The only person. From that one class, from that 1 year of chemistry with him, it was so obvious that I was a chemist that there's nothing else I should do. Right. So chemistry is a major in college. Right. And so I said to myself, okay, I'll do chemistry. And then I was really good in biology too, in high school. So by the time I finished high school, I had the AP chemistry, AP biology. So all the advanced classes, I was finished with all the classes needed from high school with biology and chemistry, ready to go into college. So I get to Case Western, and then I'm in there and I start, I'm a double major. Actually, it was a triple major. I'm sorry. It was chemistry, biology, and architectural drawing. So the triple major. And as I went through, things start to drop off off my list. So the first thing to drop off was biology, because by the second year of biology, I think it was cell bio, and I thought it was a horrible class for me. And the cell biology lab was amazing, so I stuck with that. I finished up that part. And I believe that was the first semester of my sophomore year. So now I have chemistry and architectural drawing. And so I took quite a few photography classes, a bunch of art classes. And of course, all the chemistry classes needed to graduate. And in my senior year, two things happened. I did my first semester of the architectural drawing. I almost finished, actually, architectural drawing. It was my first semester, and the teacher was horrible, the professor. He was, an architect that comes in after work. He used to come in at 6, and he was just unhappy, and he was a miserable person, and made the class just not worth it. And everybody pretty much didn't get good grades in this class because he thought everybody there should be an architect walking in, and it just turned me off to art at that point. So I finished and I dropped that class in my last year, final year in semester one. I finished that first semester, and I did not take the second semester because he was the same professor. And in that first semester, also a big change happened. I was still chemistry, obviously, and I was still pre-med. And, I had all the requirements. I went even to get a naval scholarship with the Navy to pay for my schooling, for my medical school. I interviewed, I did the physical, I went through everything. And at the end of that interview, which was very interesting, they asked me if I wanted to become part of naval intelligence or naval cryptology. And then they gave me this brochures for naval intelligence, naval cryptology. And I said, well, I'm really going to med school. They go, well, just think about this. You can do both. And I'm like, okay, thank you. So I took those. And in my mind, I had to just give them the pre-med, the tests for, I think it was called MCATs at the time. So my MCATs, I had to give them those scores. Once I gave them the scores, I was already given the scholarship. I had it because once I give them the scores and get just into one school, once I get that acceptance, it's all set. I can get in and they'll pay my way. And then there's a bunch of little things you have to actually provide them, I believe, 4 or 8 years after graduation. And during graduation, you still got to go do some things. So I thought that was really interesting. But in that second semester, I decided I'm not going to go to medical school. I went and took the MCATs just because my dad really wanted me to become a doctor. Took the MCATs and decided, this is not for me. And a bunch of my friends who were pre-meds graduating with me all became MDs, actually. So Tom, my friend, my big brother in the fraternity, was an MD. And there's a couple of other fraternity members that graduated with me, all became MDs. And I decided to become a PhD in chemistry. Well, it's too late now to apply for chemistry graduate school, right? It's my second semester, my senior year, and it's kind of toward the end now. So you kind of had to like, if you want to get into some good schools, you have to get in and apply in fall, the previous fall for the following fall. So I kind of rushed and I tried to get into, a chemistry graduate program, and I got into University of Akron, right? They call it the Great Rubber Ball. So I did not want to go there. I mean, it was a great school. It's not anything wrong with it, but I wanted to have more options. That was the only school that was taking late acceptance. All the University of California schools, Virginia, everything was done. Everybody was in and ready to go. So I decided to take a year off, and I did some research at the Rainbow Babies and Children's Hospital, doing cystic fibrosis research for a year. Now, in that year, I applied at that point, and I applied to a bunch of schools. So I got accepted to some of the UC schools, Rochester Institute of Technology, Rutgers, I believe, and Purdue University I got into as well. But I ended up saying, I'm not going to go to Purdue. It was the number one school for analytical chemistry in the nation. I decided not to go there because I did not like the weather of Cleveland, and Purdue and Indiana was going to be the same weather. I said, you know what? I'm going to California because I hear the sunshine is shining all the time. I get there, and it literally is shining all the time. There's no rain when I go to UC Davis. So I decided to go to UC Davis, and it was just sunny all the time, which was fine. And once I made that decision to go to graduate school in chemistry, and I told my dad, I thought I burst his bubble. He was so unhappy with it. And he said, why did you change your mind? What are you going to do with a PhD in chemistry? I said, well, there's a lot of things I can teach. I can work in industry. He goes, well, and this is from him. He goes, well, you're an Arab and they're not going to hire you. And I said to him, oh, why wouldn't they hire me? Now, this is something he put in my head, right? I said, why wouldn't they hire me? He goes, well, you're not going to get the jobs Americans get. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm American. How did he all of a sudden take me back to I'm some Egyptian coming from Egypt the year prior, I've been here since I was 2 years old, so I'm fully Americanized. But in his mind, my Egyptian heritage followed me in a negative way, not in a positive way. And I said to him, well, I think I'll be fine. Let me do this. And my mom was always supportive. Whatever you want to do, do. So I did choose chemistry, went to UC Davis, and in that, while I was there's a lot of different things that I did not expect in graduate school. My first, the first part of it was once I got to UC Davis, you have to take some tests to qualify to stay in the program. And I thought, well, this is kind of weird. Why would you accept somebody and give them these internal tests of analytical, physical, inorganic, and organic chemistry, right? Which are things that I did not know that I was taking these tests. So I went in, took the tests that didn't do well, right? But we got to take them again, like a few months later. So it didn't do well because I wasn't ready for it, prepared. So in any case, I start taking courses, and in this time, in your first year, you have to kind of choose not your sub major or whatever. You have to pick a graduate advisor to start. That's where you're going to do your research with this professor, which is who I picked. I chose Don, and I'll explain why I chose him. So during the months prior to taking that test again, I went to different professors' labs to see the different kind of research they were doing. So I went to various ones, some established professors, some newer professors, and Don, I went to his lab. It wasn't even built yet. Nothing was there. Nothing happened. He was a new professor starting the same time I started that same year. So I said, and he started explaining to me the research and surface chemistry and how chemicals interact on surfaces. And it was really interesting. I said, oh, that's really cool. And then he said, well, we're going to have a laser. And I said, oh, wow, we're going to work with a laser. Laser in my mind, there are things that are on TV and movies. I've never heard of lasers do what he was explaining that lasers can accomplish. So I said, okay, yeah, that's great. So I decided to start with him. And then I told him, I'm gonna join your group, and I was one of the first graduate students, right? And then there was another one that joined us. There was two of us at that point, and I took that test again anyway, and I passed all of those four subdivisions in chemistry, and I did like really well. I got 100 on everything, but in any case, we ended up so. The funny thing is, all the other labs I visited, everything was ready to go set. There's nothing I have to do. If there was magnetic resonance imaging or NMR, it was there in the lab. So I was like, okay, so what do we do, Don? He goes, well, we're going to have to build this lab from scratch. We're going to and when I say build, I mean, we're building an ultra high vacuum chamber, which is this big giant stainless steel contraption that I kind of understand how it works, but it's just this big contraption which you have to use wrenches and things, and you put it together, and then you add all the components that you're going to do the research with. So the chamber basically brings the pressure down low enough to equivalent to almost like outer space. Okay, not exactly outer space, but low enough outer space so you can do kind of research on surfaces in a controlled environment, and that's what we did. So I helped build the chamber, and then I took upon myself to build an infrared containment system. Well, he didn't want to pay, and he didn't have the money. He didn't want to. I'm sorry, it's not that he didn't want to. He didn't have the money, the funds yet, because he was a new professor, to pay for certain things. He had enough money. They funded him to buy the laser, to buy certain components, the computers, the things for the research. But for me, if he had to machine something, which was a box that held the infrared system in there, which was also put under vacuum. Okay. So he tells me, well, I don't have the money to do that, but we have a machine shop. So I spent, I want to say about a year and a half in a machine shop.
18 months.
Machining, how much? 18,
I was
right?
there.
Yeah. So
18 months. I was
it was a
there.
good amount of
I was
time.
dropping off your lunch, your dinner, your breakfast. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm in this machine shop and I'm machining things. I've never machined anything in my life. And I'm machining things with just very intricate machining. And I learned that as I went. And there was a machinist there, like a professional machinist that worked there. And he would come and show me things. That's how I learned how to do it, because nobody else was going to show me. So I machined this ultra high vacuum containment system with this bellows and all these O-rings, because I had to evacuate it. And then I had another box evacuated chamber on the other side of the ultra high vacuum chamber, which was our detection system. So I really had to understand infrared very well from working with surfaces. So I end up putting this together, and then I start doing the research 18 months in. So it's been 18 months since I even did anything, right? So you don't get credit, and you can't write a paper on building a machine that's been built several times around the world. So it's nothing like tricky that was happening, but so it's nothing novel. So now it's time for me to do the actual chemistry. So I want to say in my end of my second year, I start doing a little bit. Actually, sorry, it's my middle of my sophomore year. I started doing some of the research. Now, at this point, at the end of my sophomore year, it's time to take my oral exams. Okay. Now, oral exams were probably the most brutal test I've ever taken in my life. Imagine being in front of 4 of your professors who are experts in what they do. One a physical chemist, one an inorganic, one organic, and one analytical. So we had 4 in mine. So I walk into a room by myself with these 4 professors sitting on the other side of a table, and I have like a chalkboard behind me. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, and they go, okay, you need to present your research, right? Well, I hadn't done any research really. I think maybe a few experiments before walking into this. So I was like, well, yeah. So I started presenting what I had and presenting what my research will be, right? We know what we were going to do in the next 2 years or so. So, and what we were going to use the infrared chamber, because the IR chamber wasn't even functioning exactly the way we wanted it yet. But I had to kind of theoretically come up with what will happen when we use this infrared on the chemicals on these metal surfaces. So anyway, long story short, I'm in this test. The test is broken up into an hour and a half with your original, your research project that I had with Don. And then I had another hour and a half of some novel kind of research I had to come up with, which I spent months doing. I came up with something with silver NMR, and it was like a really like wild thing that nobody's really ever used it in what I kind of was planning to do with it. Anyway, so the first part of the exam was a little rough. They started asking me some questions about my research, and I started explaining it. Then a professor there asked me a question about some vibrational something about vibrational spectroscopy of an element that I was talking about, or not an element, a compound. And I said to him, "Well, what? I don't understand the question." So another professor asked the question a different way, and what was funny was the way they were taking me down from the chemistry I was talking about in my research down to the basic levels of chemistry to get me to the answer they wanted. And it just, when this one professor asked me this question, I think it was the third professor asked me this question, kind of simplified it in a way that I'm like, oh, I get it now. I know what you're asking. So here it is. And I explained the vibrational components of it. And he's like, that's all we wanted to know. And I said, okay, great. So, and then they looked at me, and it's been about an hour and 15 minutes into the test. And they look at me and go, okay, Ihab, thank you so much. You can step outside, and we'll bring you back in for the next hour and a half. And they started, I think they wanted to meet and I stepped outside. I saw Slava. I think Slava was there.
Yes, I
Don, I
was.
think Don Land was there too,
He
my
was.
advisor. And they said, they both said, how's it going in there? I'm like, I think it's going okay.
Dr. Labria was there too.
Oh, he was? Oh, I forgot
Yes,
he
he
was there.
was.
Oh my goodness. He was the other professor I was going to join. But I decided to join Don. But it's funny is Don and Carlito both were postdocs or graduate students together. So they're very good friends. I
Yeah.
think that's why Dr. Labria came.
Labria
So
was if I remember correctly, my memory serves me, he was from the Philippines.
he was.
And
He was.
he
Yeah.
was brilliant,
He was
and
brilliant.
such
Brilliant.
a nice human being.
I go back in for the second part and I start, thinking that it's going to be like the first part. It's going to take a little bit of time. So I start talking about, I start writing some things on the chalkboard. And then there's this, and it's what I was proposing was an inorganic chemistry type analysis. So the inorganic professor, she was there, and she was kind of a newer professor, but she had been there a couple of years, but she's younger. She looks at me, she goes, very interesting that you chose this. Can you talk to me a little bit about it? Why you chose it, what it was about, and then I started talking, and in her mind, it was that she liked it so much, she may have wanted to use it in her research. So, but in any case, so I started talking about it, and literally, I want to say this was maybe 45 minutes in, and they said, Ihab, you're done. You can step outside now. So I thought I failed. I literally thought I failed the test because everybody else that you see coming doing these tests, because I was there prior to somebody else walking out, right? They took the full 3 hours. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I'm done. I have to come back and repeat this in 6 months or a year. So I go out and I'm waiting, and Don is going, how'd it go? I said, they just 45 minutes and that was it. And you know what's funny is Don already knew they passed me. He knew. I don't know how he knew,
I did
but
not know that.
oh yeah. He goes, yeah, just don't worry about it. Just go back in and hear what they have to say to you. So they confer for a few minutes, like about 5-10 minutes, and Ihab, can you come back in? So I go back in and shut the door, and they look at me and they said, thank you for presenting everything, and it was a really good presentation, and we want to congratulate you now for passing the oral exam. I said, whoa. And I was like, I looked at them, I go, I didn't expect that. And they're like, no, you did great. I was like, oh, okay, thank you. So then I left and I told Don as I was coming out, and Carlito Labria, I said, I passed. And they're like, oh yeah. And Don's like, yeah, I knew you were going to pass. And I said, how did you know that? And they said, well, they came to me before you went in to your test and asked my, like, what, kind of like his reference. It was like a reference for him. So that they had a really good reference point because Don gave, like a really good, like he said really great things about me, I guess. And so they already in their mindset going in was like, okay, Ihab is, he really has to mess this up badly for us to fail him. That's how they were going into this test. In my mind, I was going to fail this test. And I was like nervous. I studied for a long time for this test.
Yes, you did.
So anyway, so I was really happy. And then Nick, who was my partner in the lab, he came, and I don't remember. I think his test was a little bit after mine, a couple days or something. And he came to me and goes, how did you do? I said, they passed me. And he started sweating and stuff. Like, I'm like, don't worry, you're going to do fine. You have a lot more research than me because you worked with the laser and the mass spec system, and that was put together like 6-8 months. It was completed before I even got mine completed. So he got a lot of research. So I said, you're going to do great. So in any case, but that's kind of the story for me.
Yes, and I was there. I vouch that everything he said was a fact and did happen. We were just married, a year, Ehab, I think? A year, 18 months? Yeah, 18 months.
Yeah, we got married the summer before my graduate school, right?
No. So we got...
Oh, man.
We were married.
Egg on my face.
August 1992. You're already finished the first year in UC Davis. So I came in as your second year. You were getting ready. You were still building the machine, your own machine shop. You were just finishing. So, and then you...
Didn't we get married the fall before, though?
not the fall. We got married in August, 92.
No. That's the reception. No. I thought we got married.
Yes, Katbi Kitab, we got married in March 1991.
March,
yeah. That's the official, like, religious ceremony, seal the deal kind of thing. But the wedding, yes, the wedding was August 1992. You were there, Ihab.
I was?
You?
Was I there?
It's
I feel
almost
like I was
33 years ago. Don't judge me. But so let's tap into JD Yusuf experience and JD Yusuf's story. Can you think of a story, entertaining story that our listeners and our viewers would enjoy in law school? First of all, why law? I know you wanted to help people, but was there a person in your life that inspired you, like Dr. Davis? I mean,
Davis.
Dr. Davis in undergrad at Case Western. I took his class too. Did you have a teacher in high school? Did you have a family member that really thought that you had it in you to become a lawyer? And I know we tapped into Discovering Palestinian Intellects, the Palestinian passion for higher education, and they are known to be the world's most educated refugees. Was it parents, like Ihab's dad wanted him to become a doctor? Were your parents disappointed or let down when you chose law?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top Dr. Ihab's story.
Nobody can top Ihab's story.
That was pretty riveting. I don't know. And then at the end,
there's more. There's more.
There's more to it.
There's more drama.
None of it happened unless you can take a picture. So I know you guys got pictures too. So, to answer your question, Dr. Slava, and I'd like to dig in a little bit about your kind of professional interest here shortly. But I didn't have anybody legal in my family to kind of guide me, to kind of, assist me. Now, I had a cousin that married an attorney and, just wasn't very helpful, or, that wasn't somebody that I could really go to and ask for advice or help, right? I just didn't have that relationship. So, kind of had to figure it out for myself. And, it was challenging. A lot of my classmates either came from some sort of legal legacy. And so some of the initial concepts we're learning, I guess resonated with a lot of these people just because they were around it. Right. So, getting into law was kind of a bit of a surprise. Of course, my parents, wanted a doctor, similar to Ihab, similar to every heir apparent, I guess. So, after I graduated and I got my undergrad in ancient to modern Near Eastern history, so I loved history, and I guess almost an extension of history is law, right? And I did see a lot of crossovers with that. So, with law, how it kind of dictates how you're supposed to act or what to do in case something happens, an event occurs, or an event doesn't occur, right? We have a roadmap. Well, similar to history, what's that saying? History is written through the eyes of the victor. So that one saying is huge, meaning whatever really happened, we could potentially not know. So that's how drastic and huge history is, because you're rewriting narratives, right? So that's kind of the impetus behind the law. So, but with that being said, Dr. Slava, if you don't mind, I'd like to transition to you. What was the impetus or your inspiration behind dentistry, behind being a doctor?
You guys would not believe if I told you this, but my inspiration was very simple and innocent and sweet inspiration. And I wrote about this on my Instagram, one of my stories. So right. I was 7 years old. I think I was in second grade. So My mom was a teacher. My mom was an academic, right? She was a math and science teacher for a private school in all girls school, high school in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. And me, I'm number 2 of 5. And between number 1 and number 2, myself, was 11 months. So we were Irish twins. My mom was busy. She was working full time. She was doing tutoring after school and after hours. My dad was a workaholic. He worked all the time. So she figured out that I don't have the time to have somebody in preschool, one child in preschool, one child in first grade. So she made me skip preschool. And I started first grade at age 5. So when I say I was 7 years old, I think I was in almost 3rd grade. So I came home and I had this baby tooth literally hanging on a thread. And I kept playing with it with my tongue. So I walked into our apartment. Was very humble. Our first apartment, actually our second apartment in Jeddah. You open the door and you step into the kitchen, right? And then you walk through the kitchen. If you make a right, there's a bedroom. If you make a left, there's a dining room and the guest room. Very, very humble, small apartment. So I remember walking in. It was so hot. It was so dusty inside. We had no AC until later. And I was dripping sweat, dirty, and, all that. My mom was cooking, and she's like, go change your clothes, go wash your face, whatever. And I said, okay. And she looked at me, and she saw me playing with this baby tooth with my tongue, and she freaked out. That's disgusting. Let me pull it out. And I said, no, don't touch it. It hurts. I'm going to wiggle it out. So anyways, moving forward in that day, we just finished dinner, and my aunt, her sister, called. And my mom was complaining about me. She's driving me crazy. This tooth is still hanging on. If she ends up with an infection, I don't have time for it. So my aunt told my mom, hey, listen, I heard there is a new dentist. He's from Syria, graduated from a dental school in Britain. And he opened this absolutely state-of-the-art clinic in Jeddah in one of the buildings. And we should go try him out, check him out, and take Slava to see him. So anyways, we booked an appointment. I went in, and it was the 1960s kind of style, the green mint, the same color that I painted actually my Burlington office in Massachusetts, the green mint. It was mint, green and white. The nurse came out. She had the classic traditional nurse outfit dress with the stockings and the hat. Yep. And the white rubber shoes, and it's beautiful. And you have the 1960s kind of bossa nova music. And I went in, I'm like, wow, this is so cute, So we sat down, and he walks in, and I kid you not, he was a young Pierce Brosnan, the James Bond guy. So he walks towards us, British accent, beautifully handsome, jet black hair, perfectly combed, Syrian, young, single dentist. So he walks in, I was dumbstruck. I was like, wow, is this the dentist? And he had that classical uniform, the tunic with the side button, the white buttons. He was so gentle. And he kneeled down to get to eye level with me. And I was so scared. It's like, he's going to pull it, he's going to pull it, he's going to pull it. And he talked to me. He was very sweet, and he held my hand, and we went into the operatory. I remember the very classical dental chair with the porcelain sink to spit in and the water spout and big windows. To my left was the whole wall to my left was all windows. So it was very bright, very welcoming. And you can smell the disinfectant. You can smell the autoclave vapors in the room. It just was saturated the air. So I sat down, and he was talking to my mom and my aunt. So my aunt was so smitten with it, although she was married with kids, but she was all smitten with him. She's doing the eyelashes and, under her veil, abaya. And so I sat in the dental chair, and I said, he goes, are you nervous? I said, yeah, I'm scared. It's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. He goes, no. So he gave me headphones, and he gave me a tape player, and I don't even remember what I was listening to. He goes, would you listen to this for a moment until I talk to your mom? So I closed my eyes, and all I remember, I woke up and the tooth was gone. I was biting on a piece of gauze, and I kind of was at a surprise, like, did I fall asleep? What just happened? So I got up. He goes, easy, easy. Once you spit, he turned out the spout. He had like a little paper cup. I drank some water. He goes, once you spit in the sink. When I spit in the sink, it was all blood. So I realized that the tooth was out. He made me bite on gauze. I think he gave me nitrous. I don't remember. I have no recollection. And as you can see, I'm so detail oriented, but I don't remember him pulling. I don't remember him giving me Novocaine. I don't remember any of that. I just remember putting the headphones on, the spongy headphones on, fell asleep, woke up, and the tooth was gone. So when I went home, I was fascinated by the process. How can somebody yank a tooth on me painlessly? And that's something that I want to do. And I fell in love with his persona and personality and his looks and how clean and OCD was the clinic was. And all I can talk about, if you believe it, then that's fine. If you don't believe it, I don't know how to convince you to that I wanted to be a dentist right there and then. And I kept bugging my mom. I want to be just like Dr. Ghassan Faraon. And I think Ghassan Faraon ended up being nationalized by Saudi Arabia. He built the largest, at the time in the 80s, the largest dental center in the Middle East, in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I heard from one of the candidates we just interviewed for the franchise, who graduated from the Batraji Hospital, German hospital, dental school in Jeddah, that he actually lost a lot of it. He had a lot of financial issues, and the center is still there, but somebody else has bought it. So he practiced for a long, long time, and he was very, very, very successful, ended up marrying a Saudi woman, had kids, and even his children enrolled in my mom kindergarten school that she was principal of later. Wow. And he used to come after hours because men were not allowed to come. He used to come after hours and hang out with my mom at the office and have tea and coffee and talk about life and stuff. But he married later. He was in his 40s when he married and had kids. But he was still as handsome, as charming, successful, such an entrepreneur. And it just stuck with me, honestly. And I wanted to become a dentist. Now, my dad wanted me to be a fashion designer. He said, why would you look at somebody's mouth for the rest of your life? That's not a profession. My mom wanted me to learn, art history and just tour museums, or live in museums for the rest of my life. My mom loved history and art. And I just was fascinated. I wanted to be Ghassan Faraon. I wanted to, and it's amazing after all these years, like I said, I was 7. These images and these memories are so vivid still in me that I actually regenerated that experience in my brand and in my offices. And one of them is actually, I had to paint it just as a homage to Ghassan Faraon, just like the clinic, the first dental clinic I ever stepped into. At that time. Now, granted, my mom was so fearful of dentists and doctors. She hated all that stuff. So when she saw me very comfortable, and she's like, you're weird. Like, how can you be comfortable? Like, it's just so strange, why do you want to do that? But I did it. I pushed through, and here I am. Yeah, years and years. So that's my story. There, of course, the challenges and struggles, and the way I got into dental school was very by default, I think, and Ihab was there. But that's another story. So let's jump into the challenges through. I know Ihab has even a bigger story. I would like Dr. Ihab to share with us the drama that happened after I left him behind to go to dental school at NYU, New York City. I went back to the East Coast and I left him on the West Coast. And I think that was very traumatic from an outsider, I observed for Ihab.
Yeah. So in my third year, you have a presentation of your research in front of the entire chemistry department, and they come, just students, professors, whoever wants to come. And so I want to say once a week, a different graduate student presented their research. This is kind of the last step before finishing your dissertation and writing it, completing it. So now it's my end of my third year, and I do my presentation. It went well. It was fine. Obviously you're nervous, and in front of all these people, I'm not really a public speaker. So Slava was there, I believe, for that, and it went very well and was done. And now Slava got into NYU. I want to say in my third year, was it, Slava?
Yeah, night 4.
And you were going to start in. I had my senior year coming up, and you left for that summer prior to my senior year to start dental school.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm there, and there's some things happened. I don't want to go too deep into what was going on exactly, but Don and one of the female students, something started to spark between them, and he was already married and stuff. So there's some things that kind of went on, and it was really tough because this one female student really didn't want. She wanted to graduate before me, which I was ahead of her by 2 years or something. Mm-hmm. So I ended up talking to Don. I said, "Listen, I'm pretty much done with everything. Why do I need to kind of stick?" He says, "Well, you need to do some more research." And I said, "Okay." Because the work that I did with her, that I helped her with, in its entirety, I couldn't use in my dissertation. I was a co-author on those papers, but I couldn't use it in my dissertation. So I said, okay, well, let me just wrap things up. I'll finish up some more research. I'll work another 6 months. So I ended up staying there about 4.5 years. Not just I was trying to finish in 4 years. So I finished in 4.5 years, and my, that winter, I was January, I was I went to him again. I said, "Listen, I'm pretty much done." And he's like, "Well," I'm like, no. This is it. I have everything. The dissertation's ready to go and stuff. So, he finally signed off on it. And, a bunch of so there's other professors that are on my, on that committee, they have to sign off on the dissertation, because what they do is the analytical professor had to sign off. I want to say the inorganic professor was on it, and I think Carlito was on it too. Mm-hmm. So each of them all these professors actually have to read that dissertation once you complete it, and they actually sign it by hand. It was way old time. They actually sign it with a pen. So I actually went and published and made on really nice paper and bound it in this red bound leather binding. I made about 10 of them, I think, my dissertations. And I took all 10 dissertations to every professor to get original signatures on there, right? On the cover sheet. I didn't bring the actual books with me. I brought the cover sheets with me. So that, and then, it was bound, ready to go. And I gave one to my parents, one to my uncle Mohsen. I gave one to Don. I can't remember who else. I think Slava and I got one. But in any case, it was a really tough time with that whole kind of. So what I don't like is that the personal thing came involved into something, the research, and that's the part that really threw me off, because I'm very analytical, and once it's something personal comes in like that, it doesn't compute with me why it should even be an issue in my graduation. And it's funny, prior to this whole incident, I had won several awards. I had won an award for best research in the analytical department. I won that award, and I won a teaching award. Yeah, I won something called a merit award. I won. So I won. This is funny. I won every single award anybody could win in that department. Yes. Except my dissertation award that I didn't get. And the reason why is because of what happened, that personal stuff that happened. So I left without winning that one award. And it was kind of troublesome. It bugged me a little bit. But you know what? In my mind, I was like, "Oh, I'm done. I'm out of here. It doesn't matter. I don't need this award. It's just an award. It's not like I needed to graduate." right?
Yeah.
So I ended up, and that year, I think one of my friends got the award. A really good friend of mine got that award that
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his research was fantastic. What he did, he was doing stuff on cancer and things like that. But it was great.
I think it affected you more than you realize, Ehab.
Yeah.
I known Ehab pre-dawn, and I've lived with Ehab post-dawn. Pre-dawn, he was so he trusted everybody. Ehab was like happy-go-lucky, just like his mom, like we mentioned in that previous episode. What happened between him and Dawn, his trust in people really got shattered for a long, long time. And I remember him calling me. I was in New Jersey living with his parents at that time, going to dental school. He was writing his dissertation. He had only one semester left. He was so hurt, betrayal, the dishonesty, the letdown, the disappointment, because they were two peas in a pod. They were young professionals. They were playful. They both were married. They're just starting their new life. They started this research together. It's because of Ehab research. And when he built the machine, spending 18 months in the machine shop, Ehab ended up with a dizzy spells. I remember he used to come into the apartment drenched in oils, and he used to be very dizzy, barely grabbing on the wall because he was just tired. And I remember me scraping the walls from his hand imprints from all the oils, being in the machine shop for like 12, 15 hours. Then I had to take him to the doctor, and we found out that, he needs to wear a mask and goggles and all that stuff and to protect himself. And so when that happened, he called me, like I said, he goes, I can't take this anymore. I just want to come home. This is wrong. This is, it's not an honorable thing. I don't want to be part of this. And I said, Ehab, just hang in there. Just finish up. Your parents are waiting patiently to attend your graduation ceremony, especially after you changing paths from against your dad's wishes, not to go to medical school, because he had that limited mindset that nobody's going to hire you, nobody's going to give you opportunity. You have to be a doctor for people to respect you. That's the Arab thing. And Ehab went against the tide. He just, no, I'm just not going to be adopting this limiting mindset. I want to go, with my passion, which was chemistry. And he absolutely was glowing, beaming with happiness and smile every time Don walked through the room, because they were buddies. So it was really real hard, because the challenge was, I was married. He was on the West Coast. I was in the East Coast. I'm trying to keep my stuff together. And luckily, I was living with my in-laws, which it was a huge support system for me. And your mom was concerned. I did not share a lot with her until you graduated and finished and came back home. And then you shared the whole story, because I didn't want her to get upset, or I didn't want her to get worried, because there's not much she can do. It's not like she's a scholar herself or educator.
The funny thing is, I was, because before you kind of right when I was finishing up my dissertation, you have to apply for postdoctoral fellowships to start in the fall. And I got into some really good ones, and I ended up working at Rutgers. That's the one I accepted, with one of the top surface scientists in the world at the time. And it was amazing. And I went to Don. I said, I really have to leave. I got to graduate. I got a postdoctoral fellowship. And he looks at me, he's like, well, and I'm like, but I'm done. I'm done. I don't need to be here anymore. So he finally got, like, I don't know if he was frustrated or felt bad or what. He just like, okay, I'm going to sign it, because he's the one that has to sign it. Because before any of the other professors signs it, he needs to sign it, because he's my advisor.
And the fact that, not because Ehab is my husband, I saw him go through that, not because I'm being biased or partial towards Ehab's like, yeah, he has the right, he did more. He did do more work. He did build that machine. He was again, just free labor for Don too, which is fine as long as he get what he signed up for in a timely manner. But when I heard that he was going to hold him back even longer, and it was affecting our marriage, we're far away from each other. So I think it was a very dark time And I can tell that how Ihab's psyche have changed, almost like the little kid, the innocent kid had to grow up. And then his paranoia, a vortex kind of went up high. It was resonating. He took him a lot longer. Thank God for Ted Mady. When he joined Ted Mady's group, I think that was complete rehabilitation of Ihab's mindset of the world. And it's almost like he lost the trust in the scientific community. It's like, how could you? Like, you're supposed to be an academic. You're supposed to be, the one that says, no, that's wrong.
Ethical.
And you should do it right. But he conducted himself in such a dishonorable way. And Ihab was just, dumbfounded by it. So we had to stick to it. We had to draw some kind of strength from somewhere and finish, Ihab just finish and come home, just finish and come home. And when he came home, literally he acted, he sounded, and he conducted himself like a wounded soldier. And it took us at least a year or over a year to really mend. First of all, when you separated, you grow apart. You can't help it. You can't control that. You grow apart because you're living one life on the East Coast, you're living the other life on the West Coast. And when you come together, you have to rediscover each other. So we had to do that. But on top of that, there was the component of trauma, the component of distrust, the component of I can't trust this person. I don't want to go out. I don't want to talk to people. He would just wanted to watch TV all the time. It's like, Ihab, let's go. Let's get together with your New Jersey friends. They couldn't wait for you to come back home. So I had to drag him out. And then we were living with my in-laws, and that really he felt trapped, and that's why we said, okay, we need our own space. We rented an apartment. And then he ended up working, after Ted Mady finished, he ended up working with Evans. And that was a godsend. That group of scientists, the group of people.
They were great.
That, Bill
Harrington.
Not Harrington. Yeah, Bill Harrington and what's the other guy who owned
Charles McGee.
Yeah, Charles McGee took Ihab under his wing, and boy, oh boy, it was like nursing him back to life as a scientist. His confidence, and he used to come to our apartment with his wife. I used to go, because we lived around Princeton, I used to go with his wife to like operas. They had like season tickets to Princeton Theater, and it was such a good time. We needed that. And then, of course, he moved on to National Semiconductor in Maine, and those were amazing groups. So it's amazing how the universe just send you, like, because Ihab is good in his heart, and I think the universe felt bad, like that he was in the wrong, and you were the victim, but he came out of it as a victor, I think, and became one of the few people in the world that specialize in his, analysis. And I think I enjoyed the ride, honestly, meeting all these fascinating people and scientists and stuff. So, all right. So we are coming close to the end of our hour. We can talk about this for hours on end, and I'm sure we're going to come back and revisit all these aspects of our life and tell even more stories. So let's start with JD Yusef. If you would give somebody advice as a Arab American immigrant that pursuing higher education in the United States, with everything that you learned from going through your challenges, what would that be?
I think in the spirit of this conversation as well is draw upon from your setbacks, draw upon from your family history, draw upon from your ancestors, right? These things matter. Knowing where you come from is huge. And it's super cliche about, you don't know where you're going until that's so true though. It's so true. So, stick to these core values that kind of help shape you and built you. You can kind of use this and look at it in two ways, similar to how kind of Ihab's father, saw being an Egyptian was kind of a setback, right? Me in the South, this is kind of a mindset that I've experienced, firsthand. So, figuring out ways of overcoming that and then discovering your true potential is what's key. So.
That's awesome. How about you, Dr. Ihab?
So what I would say is, for me, I would, have them keep their eye on their goals, make sure everything is kind of in place and where they want to be in life. And, for chemistry specifically, stay scientific, don't use your feelings to make decisions, and use the data, and don't fall into the traps of, kind of getting involved in something that's personal, and mixing that with your your professional life and your chemistry career. So that kind of is, in a nutshell, I would say to anybody, give them advice. That's what I would say. It's just it'd be the best thing for them.
Nice.
And from a female, Arab American, even business owner or a professional in dentistry, and being in the public health for 26 years, I would say that don't ever play upon your feminism. Don't do that. So don't always call the victim card because you're a woman. It has nothing to do with it. Since the day I started here in 1988 until today, I never, ever, ever played upon my feminine quality or characteristic. I looked at the world neutrally. I looked at the world as not male, female. I looked at the world as intellectuals. I looked at the world as professionals. I looked at the world as achievers, dreamers, visionaries. And if you neutralize that mindset, instead of saying, oh, he's a man, I'm a woman, I'm the victim, they're the victor, they're going to take over, I'm not going to get that opportunity. Don't do that. You're going to exhaust yourself. You're going to stumble in more things that you want to stumble upon, and have a neutral mindset about your profession. I'm qualified. I'm going to put the work in. I'm going to get what I am promised to get because I put the work in. Yes, of course, you are going to interact with some mean, bad people, disrespectful people. Absolutely. But as long as you keep that neutral mindset, you'll be able to champion those stigmas. You're going to be able to conquer those challenges. So that's the one thing that I never played with. I conducted myself within my own belief system. I did not want to limit myself to what school I go to. When NYU accepted me, I just went. So when Case Western accepted me, I just went. When Ihab proposed, I just said yes. I did not limit myself, and I did not doubt myself. I just went with the flow. Of course, I did my homework, but I was very committed, and I was laser focused, like Ihab said. And I agree with JD Yusef too about your don't ever let go of your belief system. Your belief system, what anchors you, your belief system, and what your roots are. Because if you rip yourself out of those roots, it's really hard to go back and tap into it when you need it. So keep that alive, keep that nourished. Right, you can modify it, you can add to it, you can dress it in a modern style, but don't ever forget who you are, where you come from. And that will help you, that system will help you draw that strength and the fuel to keep on going. All right, any final comments to our listeners and viewers?
No comments. That was very powerful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming on. We really, really appreciate it. And thank you everybody from listening and watching us. And as a reminder, we are, like I said, on both the podcast platforms, on Spotify and Apple. Please let us know if there is any topic that you guys want us to discuss. Leave it in the comments below, or any questions that you guys have. We would love to have Q&A very, very soon with everybody. So I hope you guys join us soon, and have an amazing, amazing day. Bye.